Good morning, fifth grade. Today we're going to continue reading in our Civil War text. We're going to be reading about the Battle of Vicksburg, and in our parallel teaching, we are going to analyze the Gettysburg Address. So you have a quick write at the top of your notes. It says, what are the benefits of winning a battle? What are the consequences of winning a battle? So you need to think about like what are the good things that happen when you win a battle, but winning comes at a cost. And so what might people what did they lose in order to be able to win the battle? What did they give up? So those are some things you need to think about. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. It says, what is the main idea of the text? And we also want to know why the Battle of Vicksburg was significant. And our vocabulary for today is bank. A bank is a place where you keep your money, but it also refers to the land that's beside a river. So maybe you've heard of a river bank. That is like the sand or the land that is right beside a river or a lake. It's not the land beside an ocean, that's called a beach. But the land beside a river or a lake is called a bank. The next word is fortification, and that is a defensive wall or the structure that's built so that soldiers can hide behind it in a battle. And so this is an example of a fortification. And then the last word is maneuver. And that refers to movement, but in a military sense, it's like the movement of troops. So when a unit in the Army does a maneuver, that is like they're all moving together, they're planning their attack. They have a maneuver. All right, turn the page. And before we begin reading, we know that because this is a nonfiction text, we're going to ask a how or why question about the title in order to find our main idea. And so the title of this text is Vicksburg. And the how or why question we would write down in box 1 is, why was the Battle of Vicksburg significant? Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to read. It says, I'm at Vicksburg on page 44. Vicksburg, Mississippi is a town on the east bank of the Mississippi River between Memphis, Tennessee and New Orleans, Louisiana. The Confederate Army greatly fortified Vicksburg and set up cannons that could fire on any ship passing by. All right, so we know that before, this is before cars, this is before planes, and so they used boats on the Mississippi River to transport supplies, and that was one of their main ways of travel. And so the Confederate Army set up a fort at Vicksburg, and they were shooting down, all of the ships that were traveling along the Mississippi River. In the late 1862 and early 1863, Union Commander Ulysses S. Grant sent several Northern forces to Vicksburg. Each campaign failed. Then, in May 1863, Grant maneuvered an army behind the town. After some small battles, he drove Vicksburg's defenders inside the town's fortifications. Meanwhile, the Union Navy began shelling the town from the river. Grant's forces surrounded Vicksburg for more than 40 days. No food or ammunition entered it. After more than a month of hunger and repeated shelling, Confederate General John Pemberton surrendered on July 4th. All right, so we have a couple of things that we underlined to get us to our main idea. We know that Grant had tried to take Vicksburg a few times before 1863, and he had failed. And then when he decided to attack the army from behind, he was able to surround the city and force the Confederates to surrender. So in box 1 for our main idea, we would say the Battle of Vicksburg was significant because Grant finally got the Confederates to surrender after many failed attempts in battle. Excuse me. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the focus question. For box 2, sorry. All right, in box 2, it says, who won the Battle of Vicksburg? And if we go back into our text, it says that Confederate General John Pemberton surrendered on July 4th, which tells me that the Union Army won, and our text says that they were led by Ulysses S. Grant. So for 2A, we would say the Union Army won the Battle of Vicksburg with General Ulysses S. Grant leading the assault. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for box 2. It says, what obstacles did the Union face during the battle? And so if we go back in the text, we know that they have failed twice before the Battle of Vicksburg in 1863. And so Grant decided to maneuver the army behind the town. And so in 2B, we would write, Grant failed to capture Vicksburg twice before the Battle of Vicksburg in 1863. Grant had to maneuver his army behind the town in order to win. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for box 3. And in box 3, we're going to go down to the bottom of page 44 and look at the picture and caption entitled Canopies. And when they're talking about the canopies, they're referring they kind of look like umbrellas, but they're like little tents used for shade. So let's read. The summer sun in Mississippi is fierce. Many northern troops at Vicksburg came from cool weather states such as Minnesota and Wisconsin. As this newspaper drawing shows, the soldiers put canopies over their trenches to ward off sunstroke and dehydration. And so 3A asks us, why did the Union soldiers create canopies during the Battle of Vicksburg? And if we go back in the caption, it tells us they created these canopies over their trenches to prevent sunstroke and dehydration. So in 3A, we would write, the Union soldiers created canopies to shield themselves from the sun and avoid dehydration. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for 3B. It says, what does the caption canopies reveal about the advantage that the Confederate soldiers had at Vicksburg? And so the caption tells us that the Union Army was not used to the hot weather. We all know that when we're out in the hot weather and we're not used to it, that we are slower and we're very uncomfortable. And for people who are not used to hot weather, they could actually, get sunstroke, or they could get sunburned or dehydrated. And we know that if you are dehydrated or you have a sunstroke because you're so hot, you're actually not fit for battle. You would need to go to the hospital. But if you grew up in Vicksburg around the hot weather, you're used to it. And so you're not going to be sluggish or dehydrated or have sunstroke, because that's something that the heat is something that you're used to. So when we're thinking about the advantage that the Confederate soldiers had, they were used to the Mississippi heat, so they weren't as likely to get heat stroke or dehydrated. So in 3B, we would write, the Confederate soldiers were used to the Mississippi heat. Therefore, they were not as susceptible to heat stroke and dehydration. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for box 4. And in box 4, we're going to go on page 45 at the very bottom to the picture and caption that says a hand grenade. And this is the picture of the hand grenade. It says, Northerners sometimes used Ketchum hand grenades that exploded when they landed on the detonation plates. Confederates tried to catch these grenades in blankets and threw them back at the attacking Union troops. 4A says, how did Confederates counteract the Northern grenades? And in our text it says they tried to catch them in blankets and then throw them back. So in 4A we would write, Confederates tried to catch the grenades in blankets and throw them back at the attacking Union troops. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for 4B. Based on the outcome of the battle, what can you infer about the Confederate strategy? Well, we know that the Unions won the Battle of Vicksburg, so this tells us that that Confederate strategy of catching these hand grenades and blankets, that was not a winning strategy. And so in 4B we would say, because the Confederate Army lost the Battle of Vicksburg, we can infer that they did not have an effective strategy. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for the paragraph. It says, why was the Battle of Vicksburg important? And in your paragraph, you can use your main idea as your topic sentence, and then you need examples and quotes from the text that support the topic sentence.